Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
The Hudson Valley, a land of rolling hills, serene rivers, and dense woodlands, has long been celebrated as one of America's most picturesque regions. Its sweeping vistas have inspired poets, painters, and storytellers for centuries, serving as the cradle of iconic tales and historical landmarks. Yet, beneath the surface of its tranquil beauty lies a rich, complex history that is often overlooked. A history shaped not only by European settlers, but also by the lives, struggles, and contributions of a group whose legacy has been largely erased from mainstream narratives, the Black natives of the Hudson Valley. Their story is a tapestry woven with resilience, cultural fusion, and survival against staggering odds. These communities existed at the crossroads of African and indigenous identities, creating unique cultures that thrived in the shadows of colonial expansion and systemic oppression. Today, their presence is faintly echoed in oral histories, archaeological discoveries, and fragmented records, but the essence of their lives remains deeply embedded in the land itself, whispering to those who are willing to listen. This is their story, a tale of forgotten heritage, resilience, and the enduring power of identity in the face of historical erasure. Long before the arrival of Europeans, the Hudson Valley was home to a diverse array of indigenous peoples, including the Lenape, Mohican, and Haudenosaunee. These tribes lived in harmony with the land, forging intricate systems of trade, governance, and spiritual connection. Their lives were disrupted in the 17th century when Dutch settlers, followed by the English, arrived with dreams of conquest and commerce. The transatlantic slave trade brought a new, painful dimension to the region. Enslaved Africans were brought to the Hudson Valley to labor on farms, construct infrastructure, and serve colonial households. Over time, these Africans began to form relationships with the local indigenous population. This mingling was not merely incidental, but born of necessity and shared struggles. Both groups faced displacement, violence, and dehumanization at the hands of colonial powers. In this crucible of adversity, a new cultural identity began to emerge, one that blended African and indigenous traditions into something entirely unique. Children born to African and indigenous parents carried the legacies of both worlds. They learned the languages, spiritual practices, and survival skills of their ancestors while also adapting to the harsh realities imposed by colonial society. These Black native communities lived on the fringes of colonial settlements, carving out lives in the forests, along riverbanks, and in the hidden corners of the Hudson Valley. Their existence was a quiet act of defiance, a refusal to be erased. The cultural blending within these communities was remarkable. African spiritual practices intermingled with indigenous rituals, creating a syncretic belief system that honored both ancestral lines. Music, storytelling, and dance became powerful tools for preserving heritage and fostering resilience. These traditions often carried hidden meanings, serving as both a spiritual anchor and a form of resistance against oppression. Language, too, became a critical element of survival. Many Black natives spoke multiple languages, including English, Dutch, and the tongues of their indigenous and African ancestors. This linguistic versatility enabled them to navigate the complexities of colonial society, often acting as intermediaries between different groups. Yet, their dual heritage also made them targets of suspicion and marginalization, as they did not fit neatly into the rigid racial categories imposed by colonial powers. Land played a central role in the lives of Black natives. The Hudson Valley's forests, rivers, and mountains provided sustenance and shelter, while also serving as a spiritual refuge. The land was not merely a resource, but a living entity imbued with ancestral significance. However, their deep connection to the land made them particularly vulnerable to displacement as colonial expansion intensified. Through treaties, deception, and outright violence, European settlers systematically stripped indigenous peoples and their African allies of their ancestral territories. Despite relentless pressure, Black native communities resisted in myriad ways. Some joined forces with anti-colonial movements, aligning themselves with groups like the Haudenosaunee Confederacy or participating in uprisings against European settlers. Others relied on subtler forms of resistance, such as preserving their cultural practices in secret or creating tight-knit communities that could endure in isolation. One such community was the enclave of Skunk Hollow, located in present-day Rockland County. Established in the early 19th century, Skunk Hollow was a predominantly black settlement that likely included individuals of mixed African and indigenous heritage. Its residents built homes, cultivated the land, and established a church, creating a self-sustaining community despite the pervasive racism of the era. Skunk Hollow's story is emblematic of the broader struggle faced by black Native communities, the fight to maintain autonomy and identity in a world determined to deny them both. Religion also played a crucial role in their resistance. Many black natives embraced Christianity, but often in ways that incorporated elements of their African and indigenous spiritual traditions. This syncretic faith provided both solace and a framework for communal solidarity. Churches became centers of social and political activity, where strategies for survival and resistance were discussed and enacted. As the 19th century gave way to the 20th, the presence of black natives in the Hudson Valley began to fade from public consciousness. Several factors contributed to this erasure. The destruction of land through industrialization and urbanization displaced many communities, while assimilation policies and systemic racism pressured individuals to downplay or abandon their dual heritage. Historians and anthropologists of the time often ignored or misrepresented these communities, framing them as anomalies rather than integral parts of the region's history. Moreover, the rise of racial segregation and the one-drop rule further complicated the identities of black natives. Individuals of mixed heritage were often categorized as solely black, erasing their indigenous ancestry in the eyes of the law and society. This legal and cultural erasure was compounded by the loss of oral histories, as older generations passed away without passing down their stories. In recent years, there has been a growing effort to uncover and honor the history of black natives in the Hudson Valley. Archaeological projects, genealogical research, and collaborations with indigenous and African American communities are beginning to shed light on this forgotten legacy. These efforts are not merely about preserving the past, but also about empowering descendants to reclaim their identities and assert their place in the ongoing story of the Hudson Valley. Educational initiatives are also playing a critical role. Schools, museums, and cultural organizations are beginning to incorporate the stories of black natives into their programming, challenging the traditional narratives that have long dominated American history. These efforts aim to inspire a new generation to recognize and celebrate the region's rich, multicultural heritage. The story of the black natives of the Hudson Valley is one of resilience, innovation, and enduring humanity. It is a story that challenges us to reconsider the way we understand history, identity, and the land we inhabit. By acknowledging and honoring their legacy, we not only do justice to those who came before us, but also enrich our collective understanding of what it means to be American. Their voices may have been silenced, but their spirits remain. They live on in the rivers that carve through the valley, in the forests that whisper with the wind, and in the hearts of those who seek to remember. Their story is not just a chapter of the past, but a beacon for the future, reminding us that even in the face of erasure, identity and heritage endure.